Hello, everyone, and
Yeah.
welcome to episode 14 of UKLC Chat. This time, once again, joined by Tom, but we've also got a guest this week. We have XL coach Swiffer. How are you doing, Swiffer?
Good, thank you. I'm
Should we
going very well.
should we be calling you Swiffer, or should we call you Simon?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, it doesn't matter. Whatever feels more comfortable for you. I don't mind either way.
Okay, Simon.
Okay, cool.
Um, all right, let's to get started then. Just for anyone that doesn't know too much about who you are, you were a player in Australia, and I was having Tom and I both doing our research, and you're actually quite a successful player in Australia as well.
Yeah.
You know, won your
Well,
fair share of championships. So how did you kind of get into being a player in the first place? What?
so this is going back a fair while now. So I used to back when the only server that you could play on was the NA server. Um, you could see each other's ping at the time. So after I finished high school, I went around I went around America a bit with my family, and I brought my laptop with me, of course, diehard League of Legends player, and then
Finally had a chance for good ping.
I wasn't going to pass that opportunity up. So I went over there, played over there, got pretty high ranking whilst over there, and then came back to Australia and managed to maintain that. And at that time, yeah, you could see the kind of ping connection that you had to the server, and because mine was awful, it meant that my English was like decent. It meant that I was from Australia, so people deduced that, reached out, and I entered. I became pro. Well, it was kind of amateur at the time, but yeah, it would have been 2013, 2013. Yeah, about then that I officially became a professional player in League of Legends. Yep.
Okay, cool. So, what was it about this year that made you make the change from being a pro to being a coach? Then did you kind of think you wanted to stop playing, or was it an opportunity came? How did that kind of happen?
So I had so for the past so the last time that I won the OPL was it was end of 2016, and we were considered kind of the favourites to win the OPL all the way up until 2017. And after we lost that year, I had a bit of a moment where I didn't know what role I could play, because I always considered myself a bit like a carry player, or that kind of mindset, and then I wasn't able to do that, so it kind of shattered my confidence a little bit. And then after that, I think I took on a much more supportive role, and then as a result, I played like that for a couple of years, and I think the fire or the passion or whatever it was that was there wasn't had like ebbed a little bit, I think. So, and over the past like year or so leading up to this transition, I really thought the thing that I enjoyed the most was kind of seeing the younger players on my team come into their own and like help them do that. And then that's when I realized that maybe I could just have all my efforts focused on that.
Yeah.
And I did look at coaching opportunities within Australia, but I didn't think that it was worthwhile doing there. So I reached out to a few organizations and a few people that I knew from my time playing, got an interview with XL, and they moved it along very, very quickly. And yeah, within a week,
Wow.
I was vacationing in Europe because my dad lives in Greece. So they just flew me over for the day, and I got to see their facilities and hang out with the players for a day. And I was like, yep. And then I signed the contract later that month, and that was it. Yeah.
So was there like anyone you knew at XL? Because I know that
No.
I think some of their ownership is in Australia. I thought there might have been maybe a
Oh,
connection there.
I know one of the people. Yes, I know one person. Dave Harris, like one of the primary investors. I know him, but that was the only person that I knew, and he was surprised. He reached out to me because he was surprised that I had joined. Like,
Right. So what? Yeah. So he
Yeah.
didn't even have anything to do with it.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Cool. So oh, yeah, go Tom.
Oh, so when you went to see the facilities for the first time, how was it when you actually saw that these were like the facilities you could possibly be working with? So I'm guessing it was a lot different than what it was when you were playing.
Yeah, so I thought, well, I was able to sit in on the first kind of high performance session that the head of performance was taking the LEC team through. So that was really cool, and everything that he was talking about was something that my own high performance coach had touched on back in Australia. But the amount of resources I think available were substantially more, which made the whole thing like pretty exciting to like listen to. Even though I wasn't a player anymore, I was excited for the players. I was like, this is really cool. And the facilities look great, and the houses looked really good. So the only drawback to the whole thing was just basically moving country, which I overcame. So yeah, no, I was pretty excited from the outset, I think. Yeah.
Cool. So, and from what I could tell, the roster was kind of already in place when you joined.
Yep.
Was there any leeway you had? Is there anything they would have let you change if you wanted?
I think because I was picked up because I came to the decision to actually transition to coaching relatively late on during the off season. So, the way that a lot of the organizations do it is first they pick all their support staff, and then after that they look at the players. And I was picked up during the player signing period, basically, if you want to break it down into subsets. So they had already picked up the majority of the players, both for the LEC and for the UKLC team, the academy team. And so I did not really have that much of a say in it. I think that when I was signed, we were in the back end of confirming like just one or two more players for the UK team, just seeing like the offers that they were tossing up. And yeah, by the time I came over, like everything had been finalized, so I didn't do any scouting really or anything like that, because yeah, the roster was basically done.
And it's a pretty good roster anyway, so
yeah, no, it's not. Yeah,
it's okay. Yeah,
it's
only
pretty
undefeated.
good.
Yeah.
So were there kind of other ERLs you thought of, or was there a certain thing about the UK, or was it just kind of one of the opportunities you saw and went for it?
It was kind of the opportunity that I saw and went for that. I was very fortunate in that I was able to even kind of land an interview with them, because I honestly thought that because I'd reached out to quite a few organizations and I only heard back from a few, and a lot of them were like, "Oh, we've already filled out all of our positions and everything." So I honestly wasn't expecting to hear back from anyone, and I was just going to my plan was to play in Australia and also resume studying. So just do both, just juggle both. But then, yeah, I got a message from BTXL, and yeah, it was great. And then it was just the opportunity that came up. I just took it. Yeah.
Was the plan always for you to be with the academy, or was it kind of like deciding whether to stick you on the main team as like a supporting staff, or being like the main academy coach?
I think from the outset they told me that they were looking for an academy coach.
Mm.
I was applying for. I didn't think that I ever was going to be able to coach a main LCS or LEC roster. I just have literally almost no experience. Just the only position that I had before it was captain for the team. So I knew that I wasn't going to be able to fill that role. But I wouldn't have minded being like an assistant coach to the LEC team, or just like a positional coach either. I wouldn't have minded that. But they didn't come up and say, we've got these openings, like, what would you like? It was like, we have this opening, would you like it? Yeah.
Is there much involvement with the main team at all? So, because I imagine Youngbug would be like if you are starting out as a coach, not a bad person.
Yeah, no, I'm not a bad person. Yeah. No, actually, the day I was over here before I signed, he was here as well with the main LEC team, and I got to talk to him quite a bit about a lot about his transition from playing to coaching, and then what he thought the most important things about being a coach were, what was his best experiences coaching players, and what was his worst experience. He was very open with a lot of things. With whatever question I had, he answered it, and that was really helpful. Was
breakfast really as difficult as everyone else? Did you ask him that?
I'm not at liberty to discuss, but it was really, a lot of the stuff he said was really kind of wise, eye-opening. I think it's helped me tremendously. And as for involvement with the LEC team now, they warm up against us before they play their LEC game. So today and yesterday, and they give us the drafts that they think that the other teams are going to use and stuff. I also follow their kind of coaching strategy, I suppose. So that we're aligned on that, so that the players kind of learn the same amount of things. So the in-houses become this. It's like we're both focusing on very specific things that both teams know, so they both know how to counter. It's just really odd, and none of the other scrims are like that. But it's pretty fun to be a part of. So yeah.
Yeah, probably. I'd imagine gives some sort of edge even in the UKLC. I doubt the other teams are getting that level of scrim practice.
Yeah, I don't know what Fnatic is. I don't know whether or not they would be scrimming their sister team as well. But no, I think it definitely does give us an edge. We can compare ourselves a lot more easily to the kind of breadth of competition that that EU has to offer, and when we're playing well, it's like we can tell based off how we're playing against the LEC team, I guess, because the players at the moment have like a bit of variance in their play. But when we're playing well, I can tell because of how we perform against the LEC team. I think that's a really good indicator.
Do your guys have to maybe sometimes not give everything? Like, don't want to ruin the confidence of the LEC team, though.
No. I don't. No. That's actually. Win, I don't think that's ever entered their minds at all. They definitely play very, very well against the LEC team.
Mm-hmm.
I think they all want to there's a lot of styling that happens. There's a lot of mechanical outplays. There's a lot of really, really good macro decision making as well. Something that I wish they did more often in a wider variety of games. But yeah, no, they definitely don't hold back.
Do you feel like it's because these players kind of want to prove to the main team, look, we are here, kind of thing? It's a bit of just a reminder, before you go out that there's maybe some competition which can go up to you. I hope so. I
think that it definitely is. I don't think you can be a player and not have that, especially against the people that are perceived to be on that next level. I think you definitely rise to the occasion as a player, and they definitely do. So yeah, I think there is quite a bit of competitiveness, and I think that's really good.
So when you first kind of took over that side, then was there a lot you thought or any kind of specifics you were trying to improve on from when you first started scrims in the off season?
Yeah, there were. So basically, coming in together, I know that a few of the players had played before, but it's what's really odd about team dynamics is that if you have a player that fulfills a specific niche, whether it be morale or a specific like rotation that happens in the game, but you suddenly lose that. Suddenly, it doesn't matter that the other three guys had synergy before, like last year, for example. It kind of they lose that as well because you don't have the glue anymore. And I think that there was some pre-existing synergy already that existed, and I could see that the first couple of days I was there, but it was just about integrating Matt, like Deadly, into the fold, and it was also just a lot of it like fixing communication. I think was a really big thing that I noticed quite early on, because I wanted to move through the macro stuff like relatively quickly, because they were getting a lot of the macro stuff, but I think when we started moving along, it kind of crashed because the structural communication surrounding everything wasn't really there, and so we had to peel back all the macro stuff so that we could just focus on that. And so that was like the main thing that I wanted to do through the off season into early season, spring. Yeah.
And do you think that because obviously last season they emphasised this 10-man roster where rosters were chopping and changing kind of every week in terms of who was playing in the mid lane and who was playing ADC and vice versa. Do you think it helps the fact that you've got this 5 core players? It's like these are the players you can focus on throughout the academy season.
Yeah, I think the 10-man roster thing can work if you have a structure that exists and the players basically become plug and play. And the players that are like being subbed in and out or have all been briefed on like the role that they have to play within the structure of the team. But I think if you're chopping and changing and you never have that structure in place, I think the dynamic of the team shifts way too much for there to be any consistency in the team. So I think I think having a core 5 is much more preferable at this point.
And especially, I think the way that it was done before, like from week 1, it would be chopping and changing all the time. I think maybe once you've had a couple of months at least with a core set, and then maybe you can change out 1 or 2, and maybe then they've got like that core synergy a bit already. But the way it was before was like literally straight away off like week 2 or 3 changing players, and I think it just didn't help.
Yeah, I think because what you want to do when you have these these rosters is you want to have a bit of it's like a bit of a wild card, but you don't want to change the identity of the team. I think the team that probably did this the most successfully would be like SKT, like with EasyHoon and Faker, like in 2015 or whatever. I think the way that they did it was they still played around mid. It was just a different champion pool that EasyHoon was able to bring, or a more refined pool for the specific meta. And I think that was a strength of their specific 6-man roster. I don't think I can remember another 6-man roster having as much success as that.
I think the only one I can think of is Fnatic when they did Soaz and Whippo to an extent.
Yeah.
Because there were 2 different champions 2 different people who kind of offered something different. And especially when I'm negating when Blippo went to bot lane and all that happened, but specifically the Soaz Blippo change, I think that was pretty good for the roster as a whole. However, that felt like a case of, I think everybody knew Soaz was going to leave at the end of that season if Blippo was staying. So it was kind of like, it wasn't this is happening at the beginning, it was this is a result of something that has happened.
Yeah,
where the SKT was different.
Yeah, I think SKT had a more cohesive plan. I think Brippo came in because Soaz was injured, right?
Yeah.
That was
exactly. And then they decided to do the swapping.
Yeah, I think the reasons were different, but like I think they had success for the same kind of reasons, I suppose. Brippo is able to offer something very similar, and I don't think Fnatic's playstyle really changed that much when Brippo was put in. It was just different pool, different kind of threat, and it worked really well for them. Yeah, you're right.
I think it can be like a mentality thing. Like I think because I'm pretty sure in Korea, but like basically every team these days has at least 2 players in every role. They don't necessarily use them all, but then it's kind of like a different a different culture, I guess. In Korea, it's a lot about like just give everything to your job and that no matter what. And then when it gets to this level, like not to try and be out of order, pick out a certain person, but when you had like Hyanan brought into XL in the summer to play with the Kasing, you would presume in the LEC, and then they get dropped down to the UK. It's kind of could be like a bit of an ego hit, and it's not quite the same as just being subbed out for a game when you're told, okay, you're out, but you've got to play in these games that are, you know, not on the level that they want to be playing.
Yeah, I think that that could exist. I think that it also. I can't speak for the organization before I joined or anything like that, but I think they might have used it as like a motivating factor, maybe. But I can definitely understand why it could be demoralizing to have that transition or that switch there. I think the thing that you mentioned, the LCK teams where they have subs and everything, it's not like they're put into a lower league or anything. It's more of I feel like it's a lot more cohesive. Like it feels a lot more.
It feels like tutorship. Like they're getting tutored a little bit, aren't they? And then they're going to be getting prepared to either go to another team or go for a starting 11. It's kind of like being an actual sub in like a football game, for example, instead of playing.
Exactly.
I know you're thinking Tom of Football Manager right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking about that though, we'd been told before, I think another guest we had mentioned that they'd heard some kind of rumours that Kasing might be a little bit difficult as personality wise. Has everything been alright for you? Obviously, No. I wouldn't, but but everything. No, the players have been. It's really interesting to see like how they fit into the team, like what they bring to the team in terms of like not only their skill set but like their personality and stuff. I think Ray Kasing has been incredibly accommodating of me, and he's helped me bridge a gap with the team relatively quickly. Because I know that if some random came from halfway across the world and told me how to play, like I just tell them to shut up, honestly. But no, Ray's been really, really helpful. It's like some of the players are really cheeky and some of them are a lot more stoic, but they've all been good to work with, and they all take. I've noticed that like the things that I say, they make an effort to do the things that I say. So in that regard, they've all been more than what I would have expected. So yeah. Stuff. So on to the actual season then, and it's started pretty much as well as I guess you could have hoped. We had those kind of first couple of weeks because obviously from a viewership standpoint, like me and Tom watching and talking on here week by week, the first couple of weeks we were just really wanted to work out who was actually stronger out of XL and Fnatic, because watching you both play non-academy teams, it was kind of tricky to kind of weigh up who was actually stronger until obviously you did actually face each other and you just smashed them. Were you kind of expecting that? Was there even like a bit of a surprise to you?
So I think what's really interesting about coming into like a new region, and this is also I didn't touch on this, but this was something that I felt a lot in Oceania, was that history plays a really heavy role in deciding your future. And what I mean by that is when I came into it and we were talking about Fnatic and we were talking about drafting against them, I showed them everything that Fnatic had been drafting over the past like couple of weeks, like what they were prioritizing, what they weren't, what they were letting drop through. And the guys were talking about how like Fnatic could play this if we did this, and I'm like, okay, they've shown no inclination of doing it. And it's like, I think because they've been rivals for so long, I think that they get in each other's heads maybe a little bit about that, and that's what I felt a lot when I used to play, because I played so long in Oceania. Like I understood that, and I think it was really good that what we did was we kind of just let Fnatic have the draft that they wanted, and just played a style that would punish it rather than trying to ban out the thing that they were comfortable on and making them unpredictable. We made them predictable, and then we're able to punish that. So that's what I thought, and I was when I watched the Fnatic games, a lot of the stuff that we had been working on in terms of like early macro, mid game macro, I noticed that Fnatic also made a lot of the same mistakes that we did. So if we were able to clean most of those up, I knew that it would be a pretty good game from us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was very happy with how the guys played in that game.
And I think I do actually agree with you to a point, because obviously in the UKLC, XL had always been the worst academy team to Fnatic. That was just what had happened, whether it been even when XL had won games regular season, Fnatic always beat them in the playoffs, and it was always just Fnatic with the better side, and with both sides not really changing too much in terms of what they were going to do in terms of going in this season. And then I personally thought that Fnatic just before that game were the better side, because they just felt a bit more snappy to them, and maybe that was just because I was looking at what had happened in the past, and things like that. But then going into that game, I was like, even when I was watching that game, I was kind of like, yeah, okay, well, they're beating them early, but they'll be okay. And then it slowly, like, it just clicks. It's just like, there's no way that Fnatic are winning this game.
Yeah, it hit that. What was it? 22 minute mark, and it was just basically over. I thought, that's definitely the best game that we've played in the UKLC so far. That's what I meant with the inconsistency and the they really rise to the players really rise to the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like there's quite a lot of variance between what they're capable of and also what they're capable of, I guess. So yeah, I'm just trying to bring the floor up without necessarily, because I think their ceiling it's already very, very high, but I'm just trying to bring the floor up so that the gap between the floor and the ceiling isn't quite so big. Yeah,
because there's even I think some other teams have probably given you more problems, especially than that Fnatic game. Like, even I thought last week XL was like probably given one of the best goes against XL Enclave. Sorry, probably gave one of the better goes.
Yeah,
XL
that was
so far,
that
and
was
they've still not won a game.
That was me. I really into draft during that
Taking
game.
the blame. That's a true coach.
I really into it. I was like, guys, I've done the research. I know what's up. They don't flex Syndra. Like, let's just go. Let's just give it to them. And then they did. And then they counterpicked every single one of our roles. And I was just like, all right, best of luck, everyone. I'm just gonna tap out for this one. Just remember the protocol. Remember the training. So yeah, I take responsibility for that game. All the way that at least how the early game panned out.
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
So what you meant was that you were just flexing. You did a bad draft on purpose.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to show what we were capable of. That's what I meant to say.
And you won, so nobody cares.
Yeah, exactly. Now it's just a 1-0 in the history books. No one's going to look at the
game. Okay. I mean, it's maybe a bit early to think about it too much, but I'd imagine you're kind of already thinking ahead a bit to EU Masters. One thing I kind of wonder, when you guys are doing your prep, even at this stage, do you kind of think how I don't know how to really describe it, but of course you do a fair amount of prep for the team you're playing that week, or the teams you're playing.
Yeah.
Are you already kind of thinking though, like looking ahead at what the teams are playing, like the people you're expecting at EU Masters? What you might be doing when you get there, if you get there, essentially.
Not as of yet. Like, we keep up to date with who's winning which leagues, or like who's in the lead, like what records they have, or at least the top 3. But as for what they're playing or play styles and stuff like that, I think it's too early, because I think playoffs in all the leagues showcase the teams showcase a lot more. So I think it's a much better kind of sample size to draw on than the regular season, where a lot of the higher end teams would like control like the lower end teams and like skew the statistics and stuff like that. So going into playoffs, that's when like we'll be widening the net to take a look at what all the other teams are kind of doing. Not so much that we won't be focusing on the UKLC, that will obviously take priority, but as you said, when we get to playoffs, that's when I'll be taking a much closer look at the other teams from the other leagues that will be our competition in EU Masters. Yep.
Cool. I don't know if you would have heard much about it, but before you joined, until last year, I don't know if you saw anything about the old UKLC format.
Oh no.
I think the team mentioned some horrendous tower thing.
Yeah, I just wondered because I don't remember exactly when that was changed. I wondered if that was before or after you joined. But
no, I haven't.
From when we had on
that
it,
was announced way before. I think even before Forge of Champions finished,
okay.
they were like, right, yeah, we're getting rid of this. It didn't work.
Yeah, because we had on here.
Sounds miserable.
We had the previous XL Academy coach on the show before, and he was really not a fan of it. And from a coaching standpoint, it didn't sound ideal. It was like you could get like odd side selection, and
it seemed
the lower teams,
quite bizarre.
There were lower teams that would get in like XL Fnatic like 3 games out of 4, and it was just not quite fair, I think.
Yeah, no, it sounds shit to be honest, but I mean, I guess like they learnt from their mistakes relatively quickly, and was that only for a year?
Yes, it was only for a year.
Yeah, so like everyone makes mistakes, and then it's like, yeah, it's great that they learnt from that, and hopefully history won't repeat itself.
I guess the good thing was that we were getting XL against Fnatic every week, but then I suppose now it's a bit more of a treat when it does happen. It's not such a usual thing.
Well, yeah, I guess
means something.
Yeah,
it's a bit more standard to around and it's standardized to the rest of the world. So the matches do mean actually something now.
However, I couldn't imagine like looking back. If you're in like the Spanish league or the French league and doing some research on these English academy teams, like, what are they doing? Like, we can't learn anything from this.
Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah, no, or you could look at it like, wow, there's such a massive sample size to draw upon. Like, yeah.
We've got 10 XL versus Academy.
Where do we begin? Yeah.
Yeah, like some teams playing like 7 matches, and then XL and Fnatic are like 23 games or something ridiculous.
Well, yeah, that sounds miserable to play for, honestly. I mean, like I feel like at that point you guys would be almost developing your own meta, like within the, like those games.
I wouldn't be surprised
week.
if it maybe even like skewed XL Fnatic's their own picks and that, because every week they're going to be just prepping to play each other.
Yeah,
and then...
no, it absolutely would. Like you just prepare cheese, basically. It's like, and we don't really say cheese anymore because, like, we just say that the other team outsmarted us. That's what I've got, and it hurts. It hurts like the ego a little bit to say it, but I want them to know. I want them to know when they've been outsmarted and to give people credit for. Credit that's
otherwise
due.
It's just a bit of like an excuse.
Otherwise you kind of just like laugh it off, like you don't really take it on board. But like the thing with cheese is that when you do get cheese, you should learn something from that, I think. And so to own it and say that you got like outplayed or outsmarted, it's a better way of doing it, I think.
Is there? I don't know if it's something you can really answer. If you guys have any kind of, not even necessarily cheese or outsmarting tactics, but if you've got like any, maybe even just some picks that you've not shown yet, kind of things you've got up the sleeve.
No. We very much wear our tricks on our sleeves. Right. We basically, it's like the way that I think about League is that if you're playing against teams where you feel like your player level is like pretty matched, right? Or you're better than. There's no reason to do like you just need better fundamentals and you'll just win the game.
Mhm.
It's up to them. It's up to them to outsmart you. But if you're doing all the small steps in between everything, regardless of who you're playing, there's almost no chance for another team to be able to upset you unless it's just absolutely inconceivable what they're planning. Like if they manage to do that, like good on them. But I think for the most part, it's once you nail all the fundamentals, then all the really tricky mind stuff, mind games and everything come into play. Because, for example, it's like you've got a timing where you can do Rift Herald, and then if it gets to the point that both teams know you can do that, then you do something different, like you just go back bot side and you cut them off on the rotation to that, for example, rather than at the Rift Herald. And that's something really small, but if you're always thinking that extra step ahead, then there's no way that you can really be caught out. It just depends on who knows more steps and who's practiced the steps more. And if you haven't, you're probably going to lose like that specific like macro play, for example. And that can snowball or it can't. It depends on how well you can recover. But that's kind of like how I think about it. Every macro play has an amount of steps to it, and it just depends on how many you know.
Cool.
Yeah.
I suppose it's kind of one of those things as well, with especially if it is like an odd cheese pick or something, or a level 1 strat. I suppose to make it work, you've got to put so much scrim time towards it, and then that scrim time isn't going towards more of like a traditional game like a traditional way of playing, I suppose. If it is like a dodgy pick or something, because you could think if you spend 10 games of scrims playing this one odd pick to make sure you know how to play it, and then you're going to use it once and it's going to get banned every time after that, that might help you win one game. Whereas focusing on like your fundamentals for 10 extra scrim blocks might, I suppose, maybe not even help you in that next game, but the second and third one would probably be more useful.
Yeah, the interesting thing about some of the champion picks and stuff, like I think that we are very aware that like Riot won't allow to be in the meta for a really long time because they just think that it makes the game stale or boring, like AKA Soraka. Yeah, so that's something that we haven't invested that much time into, for example. But level 1s, I think the really, really cool thing about them is not only if you practice them enough, like you can have a variety of level 1s available to you, and that's just something that you add to your wheelhouse as the season goes on, and that makes you predictable, but also unpredictable because other teams don't know what you're going to do at level 1, and I think that's really, really cool. And if you practice a level 1 enough, it almost makes the enemy team's response predictable, because if you're practicing a level 1, like you said, 10 times or something, and you get a limited amount of responses to that level 1, then the variance in play isn't that high. There's a limited amount of things that the enemy can do, and then you can make counters for all of those things. And then you're practiced in that scenario and they're not, so it can net you an advantage just straight from the level 1. So I think level 1's definitely something worthwhile investing your time into. Champions that I think will fall out of the meta and rely on, like, I just kind of they're not going to be there for a very long time. I don't think it's that worthwhile putting time into unless you're trying to sneak a win, basically. Yeah.
Or until it gets to say if it gets like EU Masters and you're on a certain patch. Then
yes, or something like that. Yeah, then you have to play everything that's viable on that patch, or you have to find counters to everything that's viable on that patch. But as for regular season, it's like it will be out of the meta in a couple of weeks, so whatever.
Yeah. And I guess being one of the top teams, you're not hoping to like nick wins anyway. So
yeah, no, it's
focusing more on your actual style and honing.
Bring the the floor up to the EU Masters level kind of thing.
I mean, at this rate, I think XL might need to lose every single game to possibly not make it top 4. So.
True. Oh, don't underestimate us. Yeah. We should be fine. I hope. I think if we keep up the trajectory, it should be fine.
Mm-hmm. What are the goals this split for XL?
Goals this split? Win UKLC. I think that that's like first priority. I would very much like to make top 2 in EU Masters, if not outright win the whole thing. So that's the goal. I don't think that. Yeah, I guess like most people would say that really. But as for like to take it back a notch, I really want the players to feel like they're on a team. I think that's also something that like isn't really that results focused. I really want the guys to be in the game and like their first thought is of their teammate, not how they can get themselves ahead, but how can they get their teammates ahead. And I think we're slowly, week by week, getting to that point. But that's something that is kind of my goal for the team, rather than something that's like a bit more results focused. Yep.
Who do you see? Is there anyone? Well, because right now I'm looking at the leaderboard, and obviously everyone kind of expects it to be that XL Fnatic top 2 that are going for that UKLC title. The kind of the big surprise for everyone has probably been Barrage so far. They're actually second right now.
Yep.
How good do you think they actually are as being
God,
in there? And actually involved
I love my boy Sybil. I love him. So yeah, I used to play against Sybil all the time. Flares, I used to play. He actually handed me my first loss in playoffs ever. Flares did. So it's really nice to see them over here and doing well. I think Barrage have they're not afraid to pull the trigger, and I think that is actually something that Sybil brings to that roster, which is why I think it's made them look like really like quite good. Yeah, they're definitely the dark horse of the league. And like well, not anymore. I mean, like they would have been if we had this talk show at the beginning of the season. But they're very good, I think.
Yeah, I don't know how nobody ever would rate them that badly. Like I totally didn't put them 8th in my. I didn't know any, because the thing is though is that these were all relatively new players coming into the UK scene, and so your immediate issue is like. Where would they rank across people? And I just generally thought that this was just a mishmash of players.
Well,
even together.
like Kevo, who was in the UK scene before, like didn't look that strong, on previous teams. So it was a kind of one like you like the players you know maybe aren't the best in the league, and then there's some players we don't know. So everyone kind of thought, I think, or didn't think they'd be particularly bad, other than maybe Tom, but
but either way, I've gone from that to possibly getting Barrage merch next week. So,
no, absolutely.
Same, I think.
No, it's really cool. I think it's really cool to see like another team kind of contest like the 2 academy teams in the league. Obviously, like the thing that we haven't spoken about here is Fnatic, but like their record kind of speaks for itself. They're very good as well. I think they were almost not too ahead of the meta, but like the Sejuani priority and stuff in the earlier weeks when Sejuani hadn't been buffed yet and there were other junglers. I think that if we replayed the game, I think maybe we don't punish them as hard, just because the timings would be a little bit different. Like maybe the picks would be a little bit better, but I think maybe like they honestly could have just like. They could have just not felt very good on the day, and sometimes the games just come down to that. But I think they're also a very, very good team. We were just better on the day.
Yeah.
Is it patch 10.4 this week? Next week coming?
I think it's 10.3 for one more week, and then
is it 10.3 for one more?
Yeah, and then it's 10.4. I hope so, because we've been screaming on 10.3 the whole week. So that would be really awkward if it wasn't. And I'm kind of like I'm panicking, I'm panickingly like looking up the schedule now. just to double check that.
This is where you're like, right, sorry guys, I've got to go, and you just say, right, we need.
Oh yeah, okay. We've got to. Is it okay if we end this early? No, it's 10:03. I just checked.
Okay.
10:03. Yeah.
Panic over.
Yeah. No. Crisis averted.
Do you think then that well, because right now Fnatic are actually third, just behind Barrage. Would you think Fnatic would still end up in the final with you guys? Well, I guess it depends on the ordering of it of whenever there is a knockout. I'm not sure.
I do expect them to. I think that the level of practice that they're presumably exposed to will eventually give them the advantage to be a more consistent team than Barrage, who I think have. I think they're very streaky. I think that if Barrage start losing, maybe they'll start losing a lot more. Whereas a team like Fnatic looks a lot more stable in their gameplay, and as a result, I expect that consistency to kind of prevail over the course of the next few weeks. So yeah, I kind of expect Fnatic to be in the finals. If they're not, like, great, but if they are, like, it's expected, and yeah, we'll have prepared for it.
And who do you think then will be occupying this like fourth spot? Because obviously by the end of this week we'll be past the halfway point, so slowly things are starting to grow. Because it does feel like at this point it's BT, Barrage, Fnatic are basically what you would consider locked in. Fnatic aren't, but then you've got kind of Demise then going 2-0 this week, and now Envision, who sometimes look really good and then sometimes kind of don't. And then you've kind of got probably not Enclave, but like the other two in M&M and Phelan. Like, who would you consider like that fourth person possibly who could get it?
Well, I think actually the first game we played against Envision, I thought they looked pretty solid. I thought that there were no glaring weaknesses on the team. They took us. I think it was the longest game that we've played this season. I don't know how much of that had to do with us warming up, or being like nervous to play the start of the season or anything. But they honestly looked like really good, and the team fights that we played against them looks like they could have gone either way. So I think they're fourth now anyway, and I think that they'll retain that position. I think that they are a bit inconsistent, but I don't think their inconsistency is like more than the other teams lower than them in the league. So yeah, I think they'll keep that spot.
We'll see. One kind of veering off a slightly different direction, but or just having retired as a mid laner.
Retired.
What? Well, who? And you might be a bit biased, but Special or MagiFelix? Because it's been like a bit of a debate.
It's a hot debate.
Yeah. I honestly, like, coming into it, I had watched like a few before I even was going to join Excel, before the offer or like the interest or anything was even there, I'd watched a few games of MagiFelix and thought, wow, like this guy, he's like really, really good. Having sat behind Joran though and watched how he plays and how he thinks about the game, call me biased, but it's I would have to give it to him. I think he's exceptionally smart about it. Like, he understands the limitations of. He knows when to push into his advantage, when not to push his advantage. The limitations of his champions, like what he's capable of doing within the game. And then when you give him like his signature picks, he goes above and beyond and just performs on them like so wonderfully. I think that like, even though the matchup between them when they played the other week didn't result in it wasn't very flashy. It was just a farm lane more or less. But he was the key to providing us with the ability to snowball the early game so quickly, just because he was able to, he was just able to not overplay, and that is so undervalued actually. Like, the ability to just do slightly more than what you're required to do. If you're able to do that consistently, then you just give such an advantage to your team, and I think he does that. So yeah, I'd have to give it to him.
And I think as well, though, like either whether you chose Magnifique or Special, like at the end of the day, the UK scene is very lucky to have these two, I would say, like two top tier mid laners who are not in the LEC at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I find it mad that there's two of them in one league at this point.
Yeah, I think at this point, like they both would look very good in the LEC. It just would depend on like the teams that they mesh with and like the skill sets that they bring. As I was saying, I know Special a lot more. I think what he brings is pretty invaluable to our team, and I would if I could, I would recommend him to anyone.
And clearly, like they're both on academy teams, so they're both obviously being seen as these are potential LEC caliber players. Because LEC teams wouldn't pick random people for their academy teams because they would still want to maybe possibly develop talent in the future, because financially as well, it's probably beneficial for them as well to pick them up in the academy to then get into the senior team. I mean, you look at kind of like the likes of Misfits who have brought all their players in. Like, there's definitely options still there as well for people.
Yeah, I think it's great that Misfits have had such success recently as well. It goes to show that the investment does pay off, and it does give players in the academy teams that kind of it's almost like it feels less risky now for the LEC teams to invest more into their rookie players. So I think it's the way that Misfits have kind of like trailblazed that has definitely paved the way for academy players to, I guess, thrive. So yeah, that's really good.
You kind of look at like even recently, like Steelback as well, obviously playing with Comp in LDLC, and then I believe Steelback was at Vitality B, and then had moved up then to the actual senior team after that, whether it be for a substitute or not. And it turned out to be good. It worked for them. The fact that they'd be able to push that and do stuff like that is great. Yeah. It's better than this NA academy system.
I don't even know. Yeah, the recycling.
Well, I guess it's a good chance to talk about that then, because probably a load of your old mates are over there now.
They absolutely are.
So for anyone that doesn't know, there was a rule change in NA over the off season. So before, the academy teams were allowed one import, which, from what I can remember, was mostly used to like sub players out if there was too many imports on the main team. So it wasn't really used to get like an import rookie or something like that. But they've changed it now so that there can be one regular import and an extra import slot for a few.
I think it's a minority league.
Yeah, it's a few regions that had to opt into it. So it was OCE was one of them, and I think like Brazil, Turkey, Russia. Obviously, I'd imagine the language barrier has a lot to do with why it's mostly Australian players that have been picked up. Because obviously, I'd imagine they can just sort of blend right in. They don't have to learn a language or anything like that. So what's basically happened is that a lot of the top OPL talent has gone to NA. So I think is it like literally like 4 out of 5 of the Mammoth side that won summer last year have gone to NA?
Yeah, they have. Under various. Sorry. Yep.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think, firstly for the league, because I remember when it sort of first got announced that the kind of lazy Reddit comments initially were, rip OPL, like all the players are gone, no chance of doing anything at Worlds anymore. What do you think what impact do you think it'll have this year, and then in maybe like 4 or 5 years?
I think, look, as much as I want the region to prosper and everything, because it is, where I'm from, I obviously also would like everything to be competitive, so I might be able to, work closer to home or something like that. It's just, I would never tell a player to sacrifice their own career prospects for the betterment of a region. So, as it stands, with the oceanic exodus that's happened this year, sorry, yeah,
including one mid laner as well.
Yeah, including. So, I think the ones that made it into the LCS have been FBI, who I used to play with not last year but the year before, and Ryoma, who I've only been really a rival with, except for like a brief stint where he used to sub for us. So I'm really happy for them. Sorry, and I'm really happy for the Mammoth guys. I think whilst the level of competition in the OPL has dropped as a result of that, it's more that the OPL is now, the talent is very much concentrated in the upper end more so than it was. It's not quite as filtered down anymore. Like, you don't have as many like star players on lower tier teams. What you have now is just no well-known players on bottom tier teams and just the good players on the top 3 or top 4 teams. And when a league is top heavy, it does decentivize like the lower teams to put more resources in, just because, like, what's the point? It's not going to pay off for them. So in that sense, I do understand the damage that it has done to the region, but at the same time, I think that with the recent changes, with the financial situation and everything that Riot Oceania did, I didn't think that it made sense for a lot of the good players to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously this being a little bit different as well, but I believe I may be completely wrong here, but were Destiny and Limit OPL as well, who were in the LEC?
Destiny was in the OPL. Destiny was on the Mammoth lineup that made it into the he made it into the LEC.
So it shows that there was just a lot of players actually, even at that point, whether maybe there was like this import system, who were considering their options to other major regions, because there seemed to be a good crop of OPL talent.
I think it's what's really interesting about it is that and this can be almost in every minor region, as you said. I think that the only reason that Oceania has had a lot of limelight is because of the language barrier thing that exists. But if you look at the top players from almost all the minor regions, because they're not able to kind of escape that for the most part, there is like this feedback loop where, because the competition at the top is quite formidable, it makes all the other players rise to that. And so what you have is you have the people at the top almost inadvertently mentoring the other people in the region. And now that you cut that out, basically, it means that the development for the region will take longer to get back to that point that it was at, and that there was an abundance of it at this particular point. And I think that's been cultivated now, and yeah, I think a lot of players, regardless of whether or not the changes would have come through, would have sought options, just because it just makes a lot more financial sense as well to do that. And so yeah, even without the rule, I think the rule made it so that a lot more left when they did, but I think that there were always going to be a couple that would have left anyway.
But to play devil's advocate on it as well, is that it could, in the long term, benefit the league in the sense that when these players have come back, for example, they've had their time in NA, they've had their time in LEC, and they've maybe decided, right, let's go back to the OPL, let's give back to Oceania. That could actually then help younger talents, because they've perceivably had a higher level of competition which they've gone up against. So while there might be a 2-3 year absence of when those players eventually come back, if they want to come back, coming to the end of their careers, it could actually benefit the system as a whole.
It absolutely could. The thing that what I think is, I think the gap between because everyone wants to be a star, right? And I think the potential to fulfill that in Oceania compared to overseas is just night and day. I think that a lot of the players that are chasing, like the good players that are chasing the limelight, will almost. I don't think that they'll. I think Oceania is so far behind that I almost don't see any world where a player would choose to go back willingly. I think that if they're not given any offers or anything, like they would go back. And if that happens, then yes, I think the filtering down can happen again, where you give rise to a new talent of players. But I almost don't, unless something does change, I don't see it being a voluntary thing.
Mm.
Yeah, as it stands now, like obviously things can change in the future, but
Which is the only thing I can think of from like a UK scene perspective is you look at Kasing, for example, and it does feel a little bit like that, because where Kasing has obviously reached these highs and has come back to the UK scene and an academy scene, which I think people still from the outside looking in kind of look at and be like, why is Kasing of all players in the UK scene? But I'm guessing that having a player like that around, these people who haven't maybe experienced as much LEC time or EU LCS time, that actually then helps the scene as a whole, just from people benefit and learning from it.
Yeah, absolutely does. I think Ray Kasing has really is that what I was talking about, and it makes sense for him and his goal and everything that he's about to be here and to act as that kind of inspiration, or that especially for supports, as that kind of bar to rise to. So I think that you're absolutely right in that respect.
Could you see him maybe going into like a coaching position once he does decide to call it quits?
At the moment, I think he likes playing too much to do that. I think he really loves the competition and the camaraderie that like a team environment brings, and I think he has found a lot of success in that, and being on this team. So I think he would make a good coach, but I don't think that I think that he's, as it sounds right now, he is much happier playing, and I think that his skill level is still at the point that he should be playing.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, now that we kind of veered back to the topic of the UK League, then to finish up, let's go for some predictions for Week 4. Tom's got some catching up to do.
Come on, what about how many am I behind now?
Let me get it up 1 second.
It was
I have had a good couple of weeks, to be fair.
I think I predicted Barrage to beat you guys, and then
was optimistic.
And then I predicted Fnatic to beat Barrage, so I got both of them wrong. So
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, no.
Oh, we'll try work on that for next week.
Yeah, 5 out of 8 last week for you, Tom. You've actually.
I think the other one was the Feel and M&M game, but that could have been anything.
You've got 5 right each week so far. Consistent.
It's consistent. Yeah.
All right, let's start then. So, first game of Week 4, we've got Demise against Envision. I think this could be a pretty close one, actually. Demise have looked like they're on a bit of a resurgence. Monkeys is gone, sadly. And to be fair, last week they did look a bit better. It's a bit of a tough one. I'm going Envision. I think it's what kind of on paper they are the better team.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be
agree
too
with that.
surprised either way.
I think they are the better team as well. I just, for all the reasons you've said, but I just think that they're probably more consistent. It's the hardest. It's the longest game that we've played. So yeah, I think that they have this game in the bag.
Mm. I said that Demise would go 2-0 last week. I was really confident in that. What I didn't predict was Monkeys to leave. Well, not leave. I think he's got benched, and then Dragdar to play support when he's been ADC the entire season. So I was like, when I found these moves, I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to be wrong. But Demise actually played, I thought, pretty well for the competition which they were against. I think Kerberos is looking by far like the best player in that team. But I do think that Envision are, on the good day, getting slowly a lot more better, and I think that they're showing a lot more macro play now. It isn't just like, I think every week I've been like, individually they've been really good, but there's just something that's not synergizing as well as what I thought they were. However, I think that now it's kind of getting to a point where it's not just, even though Adept got another MVP, it's not just Adept kind of showing how good he is So I am going to go for. I'm going to do the smart thing, and I am going to go for Envision for this one. But I can see Demise winning this if Kerberos can kind of carry. But I just don't think he has the possibility to do against someone like Shikari.
Yeah, Shikari's not really the type that gets done in lane, really, is he? Very safe. All right then, game 2, Fnatic Eminem. I think that's a bit more of a straightforward one.
Yeah, Eminem.
Locked in.
No, absolutely not. I give it to Fnatic.
Yeah.
I think that losing to Barrage kind of like it was really unexpected for them. I think they're probably going to be looking to be bouncing back from that. I think that I feel sorry for whichever team that they would have faced this week, and it just happens to be Eminem. So give it to Fnatic.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Yeah, I would also go for Fnatic as well. It was funny because the bounce back happened in BT versus Fnatic against Envision, where Fnatic basically destroyed Envision, and I was like, right, okay, they're back on it, and then they lost, and now it's kind of like they're getting the double bounce back essentially at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't see Eminem winning this. I just think Fnatic are, despite being shaky, what they would consider, I definitely think they would consider themselves to be shaky the last 2 weeks. This is probably a week which they would hope to go 2-0. So.
Then game 3 we've got should be like an easy win for Phelan, I think.
Oh yeah, no, I think so as well. They've got it in the bag. They've been looking better every week. I think XL kind of like they look like they're slipping. So
I don't know what that draft was against Enclave.
I don't know. I think their coach just really entered it last week. So if this kind of trend continues, Phelan definitely have that in the bag. So yeah, we have to give it to them. 1-0.
Phelan are the comeback kings. Last season, they were the comeback kings.
Yeah, well,
they was third in the end from being because back into the format issue. If you weren't relegated last season, you were in the playoffs. Is the way it worked. And right. Phelan managed to finish third after doing that, after going on like a miracle run. But yeah, no, BT are definitely good. We have they can't not like, which makes it. Mm-hmm. Does that put a bit more pressure in the fact that like some of these players maybe are expected to win these games, or do you think it's just kind of what happens?
Does it put any more pressure when they're expected to win? From experience, yes. So it's always better to be the underdog in a game, 100%. When the expectation isn't on you, but sometimes it depends on the person. Sometimes the expectation can kind of fuel you to reach that expectation. So I think for some people yes, for some people no. It just depends on who you are.
Fair enough. And then last game of the day, probably another straightforward one to be fair. Barrage Enclave. I'd imagine it's going to be 3 votes for Barrage, unless Tom.
I feel quite sorry for Enclave. I actually do.
No, right. I was going to say that they. And then I realized that they were playing Fnatic the day after, so actually, just never mind. Just forget what I was going to say. Let's just move on.
You've just got to think of it like this, though, because we actually have guest predictions, which is everybody going against each other. And I'm currently losing to that as well.
No, you're drawing now. You're both on. You've tied with the guests.
Oh, have I tied? Okay, phew. Right, we're okay. You don't need to throw it away then. It's fine.
Oh, okay, good.
I can't see Enclave winning this week, especially this week.
It's sad because they've been like looking slowly better, making little improvements, and then including last week, they've in a row have XL Barrage Fnatic.
I think the game to showcase something will be against Phelan, but that's not next week, so I can't make that prediction. So, so be it.
All right, so we'll have 3 barrages, but then day 2, Enclave again against Fnatic. Yeah, they've got a tough week.
That's unfortunate. That's just so
unlucky. Not much more you can say is like in terms of like, I feel like XL as well as an organisation are actually a very good organisation in terms of how they market themselves, and even in terms they do like a UKLC post show, and they really try and push the UK scene. It's just a shame that kind of like the players aren't that good to a point of everybody. And even in the UKLC post show, you could kind of see them like slowly like commenting on it, and it's just getting a bit more and more sad, which is quite unfortunate, really. But I do think I am saying this though. I do think they will pick up wins. It's just an unfortunate schedule at this point.
It's really sad because I think they have had an upwards trajectory this split, but it's just the scheduling hasn't been. If you map it up against the trajectory, it just hasn't been favorable. It's like if they were going into next week playing like Phelan or Eminem or something, like I could see them taking a win, just because I think they're on par maybe now with a couple of those teams. But yeah.
And I think by week 3 and week 4, genuinely, that's when you consider yourself like ready to kind of like, that's where you would consider yourself to actually be prepared and ready, and fully synergized and have kind of worked together for a while. So then to have this really rough kind of like, essentially, whether it's not unwinnable situation where you're basically week 3 and week 4, apart from the demise game, you're basically having to wait 2 weeks until you can kind of say, right, okay, these are the next games which we realistically will put ourselves against competition-wise.
Yeah.
Yep. Sad times.
The next game then is, I think most of the games this week I think it's only probably the last one. I think maybe we might get some odd picks, but the next one was Barrage Phelan. So again, kind of like a top team against a lower team. I'd imagine mostly Barrages.
I'm gonna go Phelan on this one.
You gotta get one.
Yeah, me too. I'm going against the grain.
Yeah, I
isn't
think it's pretty good.
It's actually not against the grain anymore because you just did that. But
No,
I'm going to do that as well. I'm going with the grain here. We're going with Phelan Gaming.
All right. Any reason other than that?
I'm fond of grain.
So my reasoning is my biggest worry with Phelan was I actually didn't think that the bot lane was didn't pair up as well as what other bot lanes did in the UKLC. However, last week, even in the loss as well, I actually thought the bot lane was decent, and Jack Spectra got the MVP in the previous game against Eminem. So I actually feel like they have improved that much in what I considered the weakest part. Because I think Bear Tree, while inconsistent, is a very good up and coming top laner. I think Soye and Dragney's been okay, but really like the weakness I felt has been in that bot lane, and so I think that there could be a case of maybe Barrage overthinking Phelan and Phelan actually, taking that and doing that against them. And I do think there will be an upset in this one, and this is the one which I would consider the upset.
I'm going to change my guess. I'm gonna change it back to Barrage.
Oh no!
You have convinced me with that spiel that going with the grain is definitely not the right thing here. I'm going with Barrage. I'm going back.
No.
I am. I'm sorry. I also can't bet against Civil. Like, the more I think about it, the more it pains me to do it. So I can't do it, and we're going with Barrage.
Fair enough.
Is this going to be another? I feel like I've apologized to Barrage every week of this podcast.
When are you going to be convinced, Tom, that they're a good team?
I will be convinced
when they win the UKLC.
They'll be in the finals of EU Master. I was like, nah, there's just something not right about this. No, to be fair, like I do, like it's mainly because I just think Phelan are actually going to perform, and I think that when you've got this kind of moniker of being like a top side and you're not an academy side as well, I feel like actually some of these teams actually get a lot more confidence. Where I feel like if it's a 6-0 or a 5-1 Fnatic side, they kind of think because of this aura of an academy team, they kind of just think they're automatically going to win. However, I think it's different if when you had like Eminem or Diabolus previously, like teams were up for that match because teams wanted to prove that they weren't they weren't like the best academy, the best non-academy team. They wanted to prove themselves more. So I do think it kind of flips in terms of motivation for some teams.
To be fair as well, if you look at Phelan's games this week, they've got XL and Barrage. They might think, if we're going to get a win this week, probably more likely against Barrage, let's put more prep time into that game. So you never know. Let's see if Tom's right.
Oh no.
Let's see if Tom's right betting against Barrage again. Anyway, game 3 then. XL against Envision. Probably a bit more of a closer one than some of the games we've just been talking about.
Yep.
I'd still give it to XL. But yeah, it would be nice if Envision put up a fight like they did last time.
Yeah, I think what was really interesting about the game that we played against them was that they kind of put us in this hole that we weren't prepared for in the kind of 4-5 part of the draft. I kind of forgot that Tristana was a pick. And that kind of... And then when Special was like, yeah, let's pick Silas into it, I'm like, this does not bode well. But we did it and we won, and I think that that part of the draft made the game maybe a bit more difficult than it needed to be. So I'll be... And now that we have much more of a sample size for Envision, I think that should be a little bit easier to stop from happening. But yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. I think it will be pretty exciting to watch.
I think this could be BT's closest game just from the outset, because I immediately thought that Fnatic BT would be, but then kind of actually seeing from what the first game was between BT and Envision, and then both sides have kind of had time to grow and develop, and it seems like Envision are going on a bit of an upswing now anyway. And obviously with the way that we would have it, they would have also have won on the first day as well. That they kind of come in maybe thinking with a bit of renewed confidence and stuff like that. So, but I do think that BT will win. However, I don't think it will be one of those games where I think actually that BT will come out victorious, but people will actually be like, "Oh, Envision are a proper playoff contender," and I think it would actually help both sides in the fact that I do think it will be competitive. And I hope it is.
I think it will be competitive as well. So yeah, I think I agree with that analysis.
Just don't stomp them in 25 minutes, like Fnatic did to Envision.
We'll try. We'll see. We'll see which side of the bed we wake up on.
See if we remember Tristana exists. Then last game of week 4. I think this might be more of a closer one, especially in terms of where they are on the leaderboards. We've got Demise against M&M. Now, yeah, they're both 2 and 4, so it's a big game for either of them to pull ahead. I'm going for Demise because I quite liked. Well, I think did they go 2-0 last week? I don't quite remember, but
yeah, they beat Enclave and Phelan.
Yeah, so they're on an upswing. Confidence is high. Yeah, I think I'm going for Demise.
I'm going to go for Demise as well. I think purely because I think they're the team with the momentum. Technically, if you go off form, they are the second most informed side because they've won 2. But you can look at it different ways. But I actually think that from the changes they made, why I may not particularly have agreed with them, did work out, and so I couldn't flame on the roster substitutions because at the end of the day they won. And I do think that M&M actually, we've discussed this previously, I think this is one of the weakest M&M sides actually coming into the UKLC, just from how they've played. And I do think that they're kind of still trying to find themselves even in week 4. And I just think that Demise have got, carry potential as well.
Cool. I think I'm going to give this to M&M just because, whilst Demise did go 2-0 last week, it was against the... Well, I guess M&M are equal with Phelan, but based on like the first game that I watched them play, I think M&M matched up quite well into Demise, and Demise, the last 2 games that they did win were against the 2 weakest teams in the league, and I think momentum. Some of the time, momentum can just stop if you have a bad week of scrims. So, and I'm not privy to that. I'm not privy to that information, but I think that there may be a chance that their scrims haven't gone as well. The momentum stopped, and then on paper, I think that M&M match up well into them. So I'm going to go with that.
Cool. think it should be one of the closer matches of the week. So yeah, it should be a good one hopefully. And then helps us see if either of them could be a contender for that last playoff space.
Can I make a quick change? Can I go with Eminem? I need to beat you on predictions. I'm working this out on how I need to do on predictions. So I'm gonna quick change. I'm gonna go Eminem.
Well, yeah, if we pick all the same stuff, you've definitely lost. So you've got to
exactly. So yeah, let's go Eminem.
True.
Cool.
I thought it was because of my compelling reasoning, but we'll go with that.
Of course.
It wasn't enlightenment; it was desperation.
Yeah, that's my favourite reason to change.
What I'm going to do next week then, Tom, I'll get you to do yours first, and I'm just going to copy yours, and we'll do it like that every week.
No.
All right, cool.
Well, then expect a 2-0 week for Enclave next week.
Drag me down.
If I'm losing, yeah, then we're all losing.
That's what I like to hear.
All right, let's see. I think that pretty much brings the episode to a close then. Thanks for coming on, Swiffer and Simon.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Been good to hear your insight and how you got into coaching, and some good stuff about the XL lineup. So anyone that's been listening, if you listen on Spotify, you can follow on there. If you're listening on YouTube, you can subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see all of our Twitters on the screen as well, so you know where to follow us. And you can follow NineTeeSix as well, at NineTeeSix. And that's it. Thanks for listening.